Chosen one. Practitioner. Your family paid told them you're too powerful, a seraphim in human form, and this is a truth you must watch unfold as your enemies face their own terror. Someone who ate at your table and knew your name actually hired a worker of darkness to dismantle your life, only to be met with the shocking revelation that you are a burning being whose frequency dissolves every funded scheme and coordinated attack on contact. Your existence as a seraphim means you do not merely weather the flames, you are the fire itself, and your light has officially turned their weapons into ash. Go back to the season when everything felt impossible. You were moving but not advancing, working but not winning, pushing towards something you could see clearly in your mind, and yet the ground beneath you kept shifting every time you gained footing. You could not explain it. On the surface, you were doing everything right. You were showing up. You were putting in the effort. You were praying and pressing and reaching. But something invisible kept intercepting the result, like your energy was being rerouted before it could land anywhere real. That heaviness you carried was not failure. That was not the universe sending you a message that you had reached your limit. That was interference. That was the friction produced when dark energy is directed at something it cannot naturally stop, so it works over time just to slow you down. Here is what you need to understand about that season. It was not random, it was not bad luck, and it was absolutely not a reflection of who you are. You were the target of something intentional, something that required planning, resources, and the kind of cold calculation that only comes from watching someone you cannot control begin to rise. Your light was detected before you were even fully aware of it yourself, and the move was made against you before you had any reason to suspect one was coming. What made that season particularly disorienting was that you had no framework for it. You had no language for what you were experiencing, because no one around you was going to give you that language. The people who should have been your reference points for understanding what was happening were the same people who authorized it. So you went inward, you questioned yourself. You carried a weight that was never yours to carry, and wore it like it was evidence of something broken in you. But you kept going anyway. That is the thing that matters. Not with full clarity, not with certainty about where you were headed. You kept going on the bare minimum belief that something better existed ahead of you, even when every external signal was engineered to convince you otherwise. That was not stubbornness. That was your seraphim nature refusing to accept a ceiling that was never written for you. Burn this into your memory right now, because we are coming back to it at the end. The move was made first because fear made it necessary. Powerful things do not scramble. Desperate things do. And the scramble that happened when your name came up tells you everything you need to know about who was actually holding the real power the whole time. You were still finding your footing, still carrying doubts that had been planted in you deliberately, because a person who doubts themselves is easier to contain. And while you were navigating those doubts, something was radiating from you that had nothing to do with what you were doing on the outside. Something ancient, something that predates this lifetime, this bloodline, anything that could be claimed or credited by the people watching you. It was simply in you. It always had been. The people closest to you felt it before you named it. And instead of celebrating what they were witnessing, instead of understanding that your rise would have elevated everyone around you, they made a different choice. They decided that what was growing in you was a threat to the position they had assigned themselves in your life. So they went to work at the root level. It started with precision, a comment dropped at exactly the right moment to deflate a breakthrough, a comparison designed to make you measure yourself against someone smaller than your actual calling, a subtle redirection every time you got clear about your direction, not obvious enough to confront, but effective enough to create confusion, and you, being someone who extends the benefit of the doubt, chalked it up to timing, to life being complicated, to coincidence. But coincidence does not have a pattern. When the same type of blockage keeps appearing in the same type of configuration, that is not the universe being indifferent. That is a signature. and the signature on everything that was happening to you was written by people who had studied you, people who knew your pressure points, people who knew which words landed heaviest and which circumstances would stop your momentum cold. What those people did not account for was the force already living inside you. Something in you does not negotiate with pressure the way ordinary things do. It compresses under force and then releases with greater velocity than before. Every time pressure was applied to you, you were gathering energy for the next ascent. Every attempt to contain you was structurally fueling you. Hold that, because that is the beginning of understanding what you are. Here is something else you need to understand. You were not kept confused about your situation by accident. That confusion was manufactured. The goal was to keep you so occupied with questioning your own perception that you would never look up long enough to accurately identify what was actually happening around you. You were being held in a loop of self-examination precisely because a person who is always questioning themselves never turns that same scrutiny outward. The moment you began trusting your own discernment, the moment you stopped dismissing your instincts as paranoia and started treating them as intelligence, was the moment the entire operation began losing its grip on your life. If you felt the truth in these words, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can see it. When the quiet sabotage was not producing the outcome that was wanted, a different level of operation was engaged. Resources were pooled. Someone was brought in, a practitioner, someone with skills in working the dark side of spiritual force, someone who gets paid to produce damage that cannot be traced back to the people who commissioned it. This was not a whispered ill wish. This was a financial transaction, a coordinated, funded, deliberate operation designed to take you down on every level, mentally, spiritually, financially, and in your fundamental sense of self. Sit with the scale of that for a moment, not so you can collapse under it, so you can fully grasp what you survived without even knowing the complete scope of what was being mobilized around you. Serious resources went into this. Your name, your energy, your details were handed over. The instruction was direct. Handle it. And the practitioner, someone who has built an entire practice around moving things in the dark, went to work on you. Here is where everything turns. The practitioner hit something immovable, not a temporary obstacle, not something that required a different approach or more time, something so absolute, so beyond what that practitioner had ever encountered, that the message sent back to the people who paid was not a request for more resources. It was a warning. This one cannot be touched. Whatever surrounds this person operates at a level we do not have access to. This is not a refund conversation. This is a retreat conversation, and you need to feel what that means. The people who paid, the ones who convinced themselves and each other that the outcome was already decided, had to receive the news that the person they targeted was untouchable. That is not just failure. That is the universe sending a signal back through the entire chain about exactly who you are. The investment increased. A different angle was tried. The same answer came back. At some point the message became undeniable. This one is too powerful. We cannot get in. We want our money back. Hold that image, the image of people who committed everything they had against you, coordinating, funding, directing dark practice straight at you, getting told again and again that you cannot be reached. That barrier is not something you built consciously. That barrier is you. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation, and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology. The same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Before we go any higher, let's go to the ground level, because you deserve the full picture, not just the triumphant frame. The people who moved against you were not operating from a position of strength. They were operating from a wound so deep and so unexamined that watching you grow became genuinely unbearable. Your ascent forced a mirror in front of something they had been refusing to face in themselves, and rather than turn toward that mirror with honesty, they turned toward you with blame, as though dimming your light would make their own darkness more comfortable to live in. That is not diabolical power. That is ordinary human smallness, doing what it always does when it remains unhealed, spreading itself outward to relieve the internal pressure it cannot tolerate facing. Understanding this does not minimize what was done to you. It contextualizes it. And context matters here, because it strips the false authority you may have given those actions by treating them as a verdict on your worth. What was sent against you was not a judgment handed down from a credible source. It was a symptom of someone else's unhealed fear, meeting something it was incapable of containing. The people who hired the practitioner did not do so from a position of certainty. They did so from desperation dressed up as strategy. There is a difference between someone who moves against you because they are confident they can win, and someone who moves against you because they are terrified of what happens if they do not. The first is a show of power. The second is a confession. And everything that was done against you was a confession that you scared them, that your potential scared them, that the version of you they could see coming, the fully realized, fully activated version, was something they assessed as too significant to allow. You need to carry that understanding with you going forward, not as fuel for resentment, but as clarity, because a person who understands the origin of the attacks against them stops absorbing those attacks as personal truth and starts receiving them as confirmation. The confirmation is this: you are exactly as significant as the scale of the effort to stop you suggests. Not more, not less. Exactly that significant. The residue of those seasons, the places where the weight of what was directed at you still echoes, deserves acknowledgement. You are not required to pretend you came through unaffected in order to claim your victory. The attack was real, the weight was real, and your survival of both is equally real. More real, actually, because what was used against you had an expiration attached to it, and you do not. The word seraphim, in its ancient root, means burning ones, not beings who fight, not beings who strategize against opposition, beings who burn, beings whose defining characteristic is the intensity of what radiates from them, so close to the source of all creation that what is false, what is corrupt, what operates in shadow, cannot remain in their presence, not through combat, through proximity, through the nature of what they emit. That is the frequency you were born carrying. It is encoded in you at a level that precedes conscious choice, spiritual practice, or anything taught to you in this lifetime. It is structural, it is what you are made of, and it is why everything sent at you dissolved before it could find an attachment point. When the practitioner brought your energy into their practice and attempted to apply dark work to it, picture what actually happened. The dark work made contact with something operating at a frequency that is fundamentally incompatible with darkness. It did not find a host. It did not find a surface it could grip. It encountered something like trying to extinguish a furnace with more fire and came back with nothing but evidence of its own failure. This is why every blockage eventually broke. This is why every season you were supposed to remain trapped in, you walked out of, not always quickly, not always without cost, but you walked out every single time, not because you executed a perfect strategy, but because what you are kept expressing itself, even when you are not consciously directing it. The pilot light in you does not respond to external conditions. It does not depend on how much support you have, how safe your environment is, or how loud the opposition gets. It burns because it is built to burn. That is its nature. That is your nature. An attack comes. You struggle. The expected outcome is collapse. Instead, you stabilize. More pressure is applied. You heal. The escalation increases. You rise further than you were before the attack began. That cycle repeats. And every single pass through it, you emerged further along than you were at the start of that round. Every season that was supposed to be the one that finally kept you down, you came out of carrying something new. You came out with sharper discernment about who deserved access to your life. You came out with deeper understanding of your own architecture under pressure. Unexpected resources surfaced at exactly the point of greatest need. Pathways opened in directions that should have been sealed. The interference that was designed to drain you was, in practice, stripping away everything not aligned with your actual frequency, so that what remained in your life was concentrated and clarified. You were not simply surviving, you were being refined. And the people behind the operation could not decode what they were watching because it made no sense within their framework. Their framework holds that sustained, funded, multi-directional pressure eventually produces collapse. You broke that framework without even intending to. You broke it by being something that framework was never designed to handle. What you also need to recognize is that your recovery confused the people watching every single time. Your resilience was not something they had factored in, because they had built their understanding of you around the version of you that was carrying their doubt, their narrative, and their limitations. The real you, the one underneath all of that imposed weight, had never been factored into their calculations, and every time the real you surfaced through the pressure, it invalidated every projection they had made. You did not just survive the operation, you made the operation look incompetent by simply being who you are. The scale of resources directed at stopping you maps directly to the scale of what is written ahead for your life. Serious investment is not mobilized to prevent a minor outcome. The coordination, the funding, the practitioners, the sustained effort across multiple attempts, all of it points to what is visible on the horizon for you. And the fact that none of it landed confirms that what is ahead cannot be rerouted by human hands, regardless of the tools those hands are holding. Your soul is seasoned, not tired, seasoned, concentrated in the way that only comes from passing through refinement across a long existence. You did not arrive in this body as a beginner. You arrived already configured. The authority that flows through you is not something you have been building from scratch in this lifetime. It is something you came in carrying, something so far advanced of what was sent against you that the mismatch, at the spiritual level, was never even close. This is why it was already in your DNA before you made a single conscious spiritual choice. You did not earn your way to this frequency through discipline alone. You were born at it, and the people who could sense that frequency recognized, even if they could not name it precisely, that a fully awakened version of you would be beyond anything their operation could touch. So the objective was to prevent the awakening, to keep you tangled in false narratives about your own inadequacy, to keep the interference loud enough that you would mistake the external noise for your own internal voice telling you to stop. But waking up is an internal event, and when a soul as old and as encoded as yours begins to remember what it actually carries, the remembering does not come with the uncertainty of someone discovering something new. It comes with the authority of someone reclaiming something that was always theirs. That authority does not request permission. It does not negotiate with the people who preferred the sleeping version of you. It simply stands up fully, and everything around it reorganizes accordingly. What you are moving into right now is that full standing, the complete, unhesitating occupation of the frequency you were born at, and every part of your life, the people in it, the opportunities available to it, the resources flowing toward it, is already reorganizing around that truth. You need real distance, not performed distance held in place by unspoken resentment. Actual, energetically enforced separation from the people and environments that functioned as entry points for what was sent against you. This is not an act rooted in hatred. This is the most fundamental act of self-respect that a powerful being can perform, recognizing that access to your field is a privilege, not a right anyone is automatically owed, and withdrawing that privilege permanently from anyone who used it as a weapon. There is a particular weight that comes with pulling back from people who have occupied space in your life for a long time. History can feel like obligation, but duration is not devotion. Someone can be present across many seasons of your life and spend the entire span of that presence working quietly against your highest good. The length of time they were near you does not sanctify the nature of what they were doing while they were there. A spiritual boundary drawn at your level is a decree made from the highest authority available to you, the authority of what you actually are. It does not require a confrontation. It does not require an explanation delivered to the person being removed. It requires only that you mean it completely and that you honor it by withdrawing the energy, information, intimacy, and attention that maintain the connection. You remove the access point. You close the channel. You let the connection go quiet and then let it go entirely. Here is what happens structurally when that boundary is established and held. Dark work requires a bridge into its target's life, someone with genuine proximity who functions as a channel. When you close those channels completely and firmly, the dark work loses its delivery system. Intent, without an entry point, is just noise with no destination. It circles outside your field and cannot locate the frequency it needs to operate on. For someone carrying what you carry, that means you become genuinely unreachable, and at your frequency, unreachable means unstoppable. You need to understand that protecting what you carry is not paranoia, it is stewardship. Your discernment is not suspicion, it is wisdom that has been paid for at great cost, and you have already paid that cost in full. The people who belong in your field will not require you to lower your guard to keep them comfortable. The right presence in your life will honor the boundary before you even have to name it. Here is a principle you need to carry, not as a hope, but as a known law operating in your life right now. What is sent out returns. This is not a comforting concept invented to make difficulty more bearable. This is the operating law of a universe that does not allow imbalance to persist without correction. Energy directed with intent travels outward, makes contact, and the rebound is proportional to the force of the original send. When dark intention collides with seraphim frequency, the rebound does not return diminished. It returns amplified, because it struck something of extraordinary spiritual density and came back carrying the full force of that collision. The people who commissioned the work against you are not exempt from this law. No one is. The accounting has been underway from the moment the first move was made. While you have been healing and stepping into the life that was always yours, the other side of that ledger has been filling. The piece that was targeted in you is draining from the lives of those who directed the attack. The stability that was meant to be taken from you is shaking in the foundations of the people who paid to take it. You do not have to do anything for this. You do not need to monitor it. You do not need to construct any outcome for anyone who came against you. The accounting is not your assignment. Your assignment is what comes next for you, and what comes next is significant enough to deserve every unit of your attention. While you were simply getting through it, one step, then the next, then the one after that, something was being arranged on your behalf at a level you did not have visibility into at the time. Doors were being opened that you had not yet arrived at. Resources were being positioned along your path that you had not yet encountered. The people who are meant to walk with you, the ones who carry what you need and genuinely need what you carry, were already being moved into position. This is what divine backing looks like in actual practice. It does not announce itself ahead of time. It works forward of you. It clears the terrain before you arrive at it. It moves what needs to be moved before you even know the path exists. And then one day you turn a corner, and it is already there. The opportunity that appears without a reasonable explanation for why it found you. The connection that forms with a precision that defies the odds. The resource that arrives at the exact moment the need becomes critical. None of that is coincidence. All of it is the compounded return on every time you refuse to stop. Every act of getting back up when everything around you said to stay down was a declaration cast into the universe, and those declarations accumulated into something that is now actively paying out in your lived experience. Your survival was not passive endurance. It was active spiritual declaration made one choice at a time, that the plan for your life was not cancelled, that you were not finished, that what was yours remained yours regardless of what had been attempted against it. Delay is not cancellation. What was withheld from you during the seasons of interference is being returned, not in the exact measure it was withheld, but with the surplus that accrues when a correction of this magnitude is being made. What is moving toward you right now is not a consolation prize. It is the original plan, arriving on the schedule it was always designed to keep. Let's be precise about something, because domination at the level you are operating at does not resemble what most people imagine when they hear that word. It does not look like going back to confront the people who came against you. It does not look like proving yourself to the faces that doubted or tried to diminish you. Returning to demand acknowledgement from the exact people who withheld it is not power. It is still allowing them to function as your reference point. You do not need them as a reference point. You never did. Seraphim-level domination looks like this. You become fully what you are, completely, without softening your edges for people who are unsettled by your frequency, without waiting for consensus from people who have consistently demonstrated they cannot read you accurately, without shrinking in any environment where the most powerful presence in it is yours. You build what you can see. You speak from what you actually know. You move with the authority of something that passed through fire and emerged burning at a higher intensity than before. When you operate at that full capacity, your frequency does the selection work that most people exhaust themselves trying to do manually. The right people, those carrying real integrity, real alignment, the real ability to meet you where you actually are, they sense you coming before you arrive. They move in your direction without requiring you to audition for their approval. The right opportunities surface not because you forced your way in, but because what you carry is a precise match for what is waiting on the other side. That is what power expressed at full capacity looks like. Not the absence of effort, but energy so aligned with its purpose that it stops resembling effort at all. You also need to understand what happens to your presence when you stop managing it down for other people's comfort. Your words begin to carry a different weight. What you declare about your life starts landing differently, not just with people, but with the circumstances around you. What you speak about your future begins to shape it more visibly and more rapidly than it ever did when you were operating beneath your actual frequency. This is the seraphim function, becoming fully active in your lived experience. You are not just describing your life, you are authoring it, and that authorship is backed by something that does not answer to human doubt or human interference. The people who invested so heavily in preventing this version of you from arriving get to witness it now. Let that be the entirety of what they receive from you, the sight of everything they tried to prevent, standing fully and moving forward without a single glance back in their direction. You will be far too occupied with what is ahead to offer them any more of your attention than that. Notice where you are standing as you receive that sentence now, compared to where you were when we opened. When you first heard it, it may have landed with the weight of a wound, the kind of wound that comes from learning the true scale of what was mobilized against you. Right now, in this moment, that same sentence is a trophy. It is documentation of something so extraordinary that most people will not have the framework to fully hold it when you describe it to them. Real resources went in. A practitioner who does this work as a practice was engaged. Every available instrument of dark force was directed at you, and you are not only still here, you are more fully yourself than you have ever been at any prior point in your life, more awake, more anchored, more of a danger to every false ceiling that anyone has ever tried to fasten over your future. The version of you they paid to prevent is the one engaging with this right now. You are the exact outcome that serious investment was made to stop. Every funded effort, every dark tool, every coordinated move, it was all aimed at ensuring you never became what you are standing in at this moment. And here you are, not softened by the opposition, sharpened by it, not confused by what was sent, clarified by it, not diminished by the weight of what you carried through those seasons, made more concentrated by it. You are seraphim in human form. That is not a metaphor selected to lift your mood on a hard day. It is a literal description of the frequency you carry, the rank you hold in the spiritual order, the nature of the protection that has surrounded you since before you took your first breath in this life, and the purpose that carries your name on it from before you arrived. Burning ones, purifiers, beings whose presence alone causes what is false to dissolve. That is your function. You do not have to perform it as a practice. You simply have to show up fully as what you already are, and let that presence do what it was always built to do. The practitioner found out what that means. The people who paid found out. Every dark current directed at you found out. And now you know, fully, completely, in a way that cannot be argued away, because the proof is not a concept, it is your life. It is every season you were designated to not survive, that you walked out of. It is every version of the ending that was written for you, that you refused to inhabit. The fire that was sent at you found something it could not extinguish, because you are the fire. You have always been the fire. Everything that was launched at you landed on the sun. Go forward now, with all of it, with the ancient authority encoded in your bones, with the divine protection that has been active since before you had language for it, with the abundance that is already in motion toward you and cannot be rerouted, with the full weight of everything you have survived converted into fuel. Go forward, knowing that what is yours is protected at a level no funded scheme can breach, that what tried to stop you paid for the privilege of failing, that what you are cannot be negotiated with, outmaneuvered, spiritually suppressed, or placed in a container built by hands that were never meant to hold you. You are the one they warned each other about. You always were. Now move like it, still burning, still rising. And this right here, right now, is only the beginning.